Chapter 14. Actions have consequences. Tom stood away from the brightness coming from the door. Liz leaned against the post beside him, arms folded loosely, a gentle smile across her face. "You've been distant." "I've been busy." Tom glanced at her. "Hadrick says idleness makes weak hands." Liz rolled her eyes. "Hadrick says a great many things." A pause settled between them. Liz glanced toward the doorway, then back at him. "I was frightened," she admitted softly, "when you fought those boys in the market." "Frightened for me?" "For what happens to people who choose fights they can't win." He searched her face and found no teasing there, only concern. Before he could respond, the scrape of boots cut through the quiet. Tom turned. Zack stood a few paces away, flanked by two men with arms crossed and watchful eyes. His usual mocking smile was gone. Tonight there was only clenched jaw and hard stare. "Well," Zack drawled, stepping into the lantern glow. "There you are." He pinned Tom with a glare. Liz stiffened beside Tom. "I don't want trouble," Tom said carefully. Zack smiled thinly. "Funny. That's exactly what I came to discuss." The two men with Zack shifted slightly, blocking the yard's open path. "I came to talk," Zack continued, "about a certain golden ring." Tom's heartbeat quickened. His hand brushed instinctively against his pocket. "I don't know anything about that," he said. Zack's eyes hardened. "You came looking for me. You asked about selling something." "I asked a question. I don't have anything to sell." Zack took another step closer. The smell of cheap spirits clung to him. "So you're saying that you wasted my time?" "I didn't waste anything," Tom replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I changed my mind. You were not the right person to talk to." "You don't get to change your mind." Neither of them moved. Behind the stable wall, Tom caught a flicker of movement. Dirk, half hidden in shadow, watching. "I don't have any rings," Tom insisted. Zack's jaw flexed. "Let's check," he said. The ring's heat flared against Tom's thigh as knife appeared in Zack's hand with a quick metallic whisper. Liz sucked in a breath. "Don't," she said. Zack ignored her. He lunged. Tom reacted as Rylan had taught him. He stepped to the side. The blade missed his ribs by inches. He grabbed Zack's wrist, twisting, trying to control the arm. Zack was stronger than he looked. He wrenched free and slashed again. Tom shoved him, the two of them stumbling in the dirt. Liz cried out as she tried to move away. There was a brief, sharp sound. Cloth tearing. Then Liz screamed. She dropped to the ground, clutching her arm. Blood seeped between her fingers. Zack stared down at her, startled. "I didn't." The world narrowed to that single streak of red. Tom moved without thinking. He seized Zack's wrist again. They grappled, boots digging furrows in the yard. The knife twisted between them. Zack snarled, trying to wrench the knife away. Tom's fingers slipped, then caught the handle. He tore it loose. Zack lunged just as Tom drove the blade forward. For one terrible instant Tom felt the resistance, then with a sickening ease, the blade sliced through clothing and skin, buried hilt deep into Zack's abdomen. Warm blood flooded over Tom's hand. Zack's breath left him in a broken gasp, more in surprise than in pain. Tom stood frozen, hand on the hilt. The yard fell silent except for Liz's sobbing. Zack staggered backward, eyes wide in disbelief. The two men beside him froze. The tavern door slammed open. Aya rushed out. "What is going on?" She saw Liz on the ground, blood on her sleeve. She saw Zack swaying, the knife buried deep in his gut. She saw Tom standing there, hands still slick with red. For one suspended second, no one moved. "Liz!" Aya cried, dropping beside her daughter. She looked at Tom's bloody hand. "What have you done?" Zack collapsed to his knees. Tom staggered back, looking at his hand as though it belonged to someone else. "I didn't mean," he began. Zack gurgled weakly, clutching at the knife. "Get the guards," someone shouted from the dark. The word cut through Tom's shock like a blade. Guards. If they came, what would they see? A wounded girl. A dying man. Tom standing over him, blood dripping from his hand. Dirk stepped from the shadows slowly, eyes fixed on Tom. "You filthy rat. You killed him," Dirk whispered, his eyes bored into Tom. "Blood is on your hands." I pressed cloth to the wound, tears streaking her face. Zack sat sideways, supported clumsily by one of his companions. Tom tried again, but no explanation formed. Footsteps echoed from down the lane. Voices calling. The guard would not be long. Tom looked at Liz. Her eyes met his, not with anger but wide with pain and concern for Tom. She broke the gaze, glancing at the city, listening for the approaching footsteps. If he stayed, no one would hear the truth. They would see blood. They would see Zack dying. That would be enough. Panic seized him. He turned and ran. He cut through the narrow alley beside the tavern, boots slipping on loose gravel. He vaulted a low crate, ignored the shout behind him. The market streets were thinner at night. A pair of merchants stared as he sprinted past. A dog barked. Tom ducked into a side lane, then another, weaving instinctively. He had walked these streets often enough, delivering kegs and feed. Now he used that memory to vanish. The ring pressed cold against his thigh. He ran until his lungs burned and the tavern's noise faded into distant echo. At the far edge of the city, beyond the busier thoroughfares, stood a row of abandoned buildings. Windows were boarded. Roofs were sagging. Doors were hanging crooked on rusted hinges. Tom slipped between two leaning walls and forced open a half-rotted door. It groaned in protest but gave way. Inside, the air smelled of dust and damp wood. Moonlight filtered through cracks in the boards, striping the floor in pale silver. He pushed the door mostly closed behind him and leaned against it, chest heaving. No shouts. No pounding boots. Just faint noise of cart wheels against cobbles. His hands trembled violently. He stared at them in the dim light, as if confirming what they had done. He had tried to defend Liz, but he stabbed a man. In the eyes of anyone who arrived too late, it would look simple. Murder. Tom slid down the wall until he was sitting on the walked floor. Outside, distant voices carried faintly through the night. Someone would be searching soon. The night passed in fragments. Every creak, gust of wind, distant voice jolted him awake. Morning filtered in pale and thin through the warped planks. Dust hung lazily in the beams of light, indifferent to his fear. His back ached from the hard floor. His throat felt dry and tight. He had not dared to search for water. Voices and footsteps drifted from the street outside. He flinched at every shadow that crossed the cracks in the boarded windows. He saw blood oozing from Zack's abdomen. Had he died? Had he lived and named Tom? Had Dirk spoken already? Had Liz? Was she all right? The ring hidden in his pocket lay silent and still. It provided no comfort and no answers for what lay ahead. Tom watched the shadows crawl across the floor and counted the bell tolls. As dusk approached again, markets started to empty. Tom began to hope that perhaps they were not looking for him. Perhaps Zack's companions had carried him away and spun a different tale. Perhaps the guard saw it as a brawl between criminals, or perhaps they were searching and simply had not thought to look here. He could not stay to find out. When full dark came and the streets thinned once more, Tom eased the door open and slipped into the alley. He moved cautiously, sticking to the edges of lamplight. The market square was quieter now, only a few lanterns glowing low. The tavern lay in the opposite direction. He did not look that way. He made for the docks. Aster River ran black along the city's edge, reflecting scattered points of light. The scent of mud and wet wood hung thick in the air. A long, flat-bottomed barge was moored at the largest pier, lanterns swinging gently from its poles. Men were loading sacks of grain, crates of tools, barrels sealed with pitch. Tom slowed as he approached.